So good to have you back with us on the Richard and Judy Book Club, exclusive to WHSmith. We've missed you. Coming up, Lucie Whitehouse, Before We Met.
Do you know, I genuinely cannot find one thing in here that needs to be thrown out, Judy.
Really? You are genuinely not willing to let go of that Beckham-style sarong? Surely it can go. You've never even worn it.
One day I will. I'm sure I will. I'll just put it here at the back.
And you're still convinced that bell-bottom flares will be back?
Oh, come on. They are a fashion classic. I just don't understand why it's taking so long. I used to wear them all the time.
Ah, yes. But that was before we met. That'll do. Just whack some hairspray on. I've got breaking news to deliver. Terry, I've got the top story. Jimmy, get these tapes down to Fred the Ed. We're leading with this. The people of the North West and Isle of Man cannot be kept waiting.
Miss Finnegan? Hi.
And Mike, we'll do a nice two-shot for the 6 and keep the close-up really tight on the tears. Bring the music up really slowly.
Oh, that sounds, well, Miss Finnegan, hi, I'm...
Yes. Oh, tea, please, thank you. I'll have it as I like my men. Strong, hot, and not too much saccharin.
Right, no. Miss Finnegan, I'm Richard Madeley. I'm your new partner.
You're who? Oh, hello.
Of course. The rest is history.
Before We Met. It's a really, really good idea for a book, and it's reminiscent to a certain extent of Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, which, of course, we've had in the book club before, and which is still selling like the clappers. It's just amazing. And actually, I believe they're making a film of it. And so it was a huge success for her, and this is in the same genre. It's this marriage thriller thing. It takes a married couple and it makes you realise there's something very strange going on, but for a long time you don't quite know what.
Well, this, as you say, it is a part of a genre. It's quite a new sort of genre, really. This kind of a thriller based on hidden secrets and mysteries, you know, deeply embedded in a marriage. I wonder why that kind of new genre is proving so successful now, as you say.
It's a question I've thought about a lot, and obviously I think a lot of people think, well, you know, Gone Girl was such a huge success that a lot of people are writing to satisfy that market. But actually, I think there's more to it than that. I started writing Before We Met 3 years ago, or 3 years before it was published. It took me a long time to do because there was a lot happening in my personal life, and part of that was that I met the man I'm now married to and got married. So obviously marriage personally was something I was thinking about a lot. But I also think that marriage has changed a lot. Even since I became an adult, say 20 years ago, I'm 38, I was talking about this with friends, and we sort of all said, yes, you know, it's because people get married later these days. People have lived more lives by the time they get married, and so there's so much more potential for secrets and hidden pasts and truths that aren't quite revealed. I think even in a good marriage, an excellent marriage, there are things that you probably, you know, should suppress slightly. I mean, nobody wants to hear about their partner's old boyfriends or girlfriends in great detail, I don't think. But I was interested to know the real figures for when, when this big change came in people marrying later and what the figures actually were. So I looked it up, and it's only in the last 5 years that the average age for a first-time marriage for a woman is 30. And in 1981, when Charles and Diana got married, the average age for a first marriage for a woman was 23, which to me now seems incredibly young. But I mean, that's the average, and most of my friends have got married later. I got married at 35, and I know lots of people who've got married later than that, obviously. And I think there's a lot of lived life now that happens before marriage, and I think that's all the things that happen then are quite fertile territory for writers, and particularly for suspense writers like me.
Of course, it took her a bit longer to write this book because she got married, and that was a preoccupation and it slowed her up. But now she's written it, and I do wonder, if her husband, once they know that he is her husband, I wonder if he gets some funny looks from people.
He's quite sanguine about it all, actually. But it's funny. I don't know whether it's because he's obviously such a good stick, but nobody's probed him too deeply about whether he's got a malevolent brother and a murky past. But he's older than me. He's 8 years older than me. So I was very conscious that there was a lot of his life that he had already lived before we met, and it was a strange thing that I'm not really a jealous person. I'm not jealous of the relationships that he has obviously had in the past, being in his 40s, but I'm kind of jealous of the time in a way, if that doesn't sound too strange, that I wish I'd known him before. I feel like there was kind of quite a lot of water under the bridge for both of us, that we met when we were, how old? Hang on, 34 and 42. So, we'd missed quite a lot of each other by that time. And from that point of view, it's a little bit of a sad thought. But no, I think he's a decent bloke, and people don't think that I'm drawing on my own experience too much.
Well, the other example from our own book club of this particular genre is Apple Tree Yard, which was also hugely successful. True. But let's get down to this book. And now, basically, we have this woman, Hannah, who meets her husband, Mark. She meets him while she's in America. She's a very successful careerist herself. He's in a very successful career. He's English, like she is. And they come back. She loses her job in America, and they come back to London, and they're desperately in love, very happily married. He's absolutely gorgeous. She's absolutely gorgeous. He's a real high flyer. He's got a fantastic career, earns loads of money, and they have this wonderful London flat. And everything's great, everything's wonderful, and then it's not, because something starts to happen which she can't explain. It begins when the husband, Mark, goes off to New York on a business trip and frankly doesn't come back, at least not when he's supposed to. No. He's not on the plane. She goes to Heathrow to meet him. He's not there. And she doesn't know what's happened to him. She can't raise him on his mobile. He's not answering. There's no explanation. There's absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's great. And you really do wonder what on earth is going on. I mean, she really draws you into that panic that she feels, that he's just completely gone off the radar. It's extraordinary. Of course, there's another aspect to it. There's this whole other section of sibling rivalry, as well as these secrets within the marriage, which is right at the heart of the book. And again, I wondered if she based the Mark-Nick relationship on anything that she's actually seen herself in real life.
No, I didn't. Or not. I'm very lucky in my family. There's I get on very well with my own sisters. I have two, but even in my wider family, I've got lots of cousins, and there's no real rivalry beyond sort of the totally average between any of them. I don't think. Certainly not that I'm aware of. I think maybe that's why I'm interested in it. I think coming from quite a happy family, I'm fascinated by families that go wrong, and how that can happen. I think favouritism in particular is particularly pernicious. I only have one daughter, but I look at her and I can't imagine what it would be like, if she had a sibling and one of the siblings was preferred to the other one, and how incredibly painful that would be. And so I think the kind of horror of the topic, in a way, fascinates me. I think that's probably why I'm drawn to it.
Well, I mean, the thing about Mark-Nick is that you don't know until about well onto the book who Nick is. I mean, as far as Hannah's concerned, her lovely husband Mark had no family to begin with. Yes. He tells her his parents are dead.
That's right.
He tells her he was an only child. No, he does tell her he had a brother, but he says that then there's no communication. There's nothing. He tells her absolutely nothing about his past at all, except as we gradually begin to understand that his brother Nick did something terrible which has affected Mark really badly. Now, in fact, it's not what it seems at all. But Hannah, of course, really believes Mark at first. And all the consequences are absolutely dire because it's all about secrecy and keeping things. And gradually, Hannah begins to trace Mark's childhood and what actually happened, his relationship with his parents, his relationship with his brother Nick, and discovers some terrible, terrible things.
She also writes about this very strong and a genuinely loving relationship between Hannah and her brother, Tom. And I've got a sister who I'm very close to, and I hope that she's close to me, but I never had a brother. And I just wonder about the difference between brother-sister relationships and fraternal brother relationships. And, if a brother-sister bond is likely to be easier to forge than a male fraternal relationship, given the competitive nature of men, and particularly brothers.
That's a difficult question. I think, obviously there are elements or sort of potential arenas for competition that are taken out when you have a brother and sister relationship. There's no competing about popularity with boys or who's prettier or sort of that sort of thing. But I think there's still plenty of room for conflict between brothers and sisters. But that said, in my case, the brother and sister relationships that I know firsthand are all quite close. I think I've obviously been very lucky.
Hannah also, because she's so much in love with Mark, is completely enslaved by him in every way. And from being this very strong, extremely bright, clever career woman, becomes more and more dependent, clingy, upset, weird, and even finds that she's losing her own bank account through machinations of Mark, which she knows nothing about. So I wonder if the writer, Lucie Whitehouse, feels that marriage does in some way make a strong woman vulnerable.
For me, the interest in the story comes from the fact that what happens to Hannah could happen to anybody, and it wasn't because she was weak or that she wasn't competent and strong and could handle herself as she'd been doing for years. That felt important to me in writing the story, that she wasn't a sort of hapless victim, but somebody who was used to being totally competent and a free agent in the world. And as you say, she has been made vulnerable by her marriage, and I mean that's something that interests me a lot about marriage. That you have to rely on your partner and consider yourself sort of a unit for it to work. If you're two people living independently in a relationship, in a marriage, that feels like a sort of team of horses where the horses aren't sort of properly in harness. I mean, that's a terrible analogy to use for marriage, harnesses. But I think, for marriage to really work, you have to sort of enjoy being bonded to somebody else and reap all the benefits from that. But it does take some getting used to if you've been single for a long time. And again, this is something that I drew on from my own experience. Obviously, met Joe when I was older. We got married when I was 35. I'd been living independently, totally financially independent for many, many years. And suddenly, I moved overseas the other way from Hannah. Joe is American, and I live in Brooklyn now. And so we met when I came to New York for 3 months as an adventure. I didn't imagine that I was going to meet the man who would be my husband. And so when I left, I had a whole structured life set up in London. I had a flat, and I worked in publishing as well as writing. So I had a day job to go to, and a whole structure of friends and family and professional network. And then suddenly I moved here, and I was 3,000 miles away from all of that. And it does feel disempowering. It takes a while to find your feet again. And I think particularly at the moment, with the economic situation being what it is, and I mean, I've watched people that I know and who I know are very talented and good at their jobs struggle to find work, and I've seen how disempowering that is too. And I wanted to weave some of that vulnerability into Hannah's situation because I thought it would be interesting to explore, but also shows how, you know, even people who are strong and totally competent come across situations in their lives where their shell is cracked and they are vulnerable.
And obviously we couldn't avoid asking her what she's working on next, and I wondered if it was another thriller based on family ties, deceptions, all that kind of stuff.
It is another thriller. It's not a marriage thriller. I think I've done my thinking about marriage for a while, and part of the excitement for me in writing is exploring new ideas with each book. The new book is set in Oxford, and it is about families, but it's about somebody who from outside who comes into a family, and it's about it's about deception, but self-deception as much as deception of other people, and there's a higher body count than my usual, so I'm really enjoying it.
Still to come.
Writing for me is 100% my passion, and to have been able to turn my passion into a job is a privilege that I never take for granted.
Mad About You by Sinead Moriarty.
Right, so you obviously aren't going to give anything to the charity shop, are you? Hang on a second, what's this?
Good grief, I haven't seen that for years. The cape looks a little bit crushed there, but that leotard should still fit, and I'm sure I can get the red pants to go on top.
I'd like to see you in that.
Really? I'll get changed. Where's a phone box when you need one?
You'll need all your superpowers to get this lot tidied up.
We have so much more bonus content for you. Just go to richardandjudy.whsmith.co.uk.